Hello everyone. So in the last session, part 1 out of 2 of how US dollar dominates as a global currency was explained. So further, I told that in that video we'll be discussing on the petrodollar and the concept of petrodollar recycling. So let us directly get into that topic. There we had discussed that recently during the Russia-Ukraine war, we have been seeing US applying sanctions on Russia, and they have been bringing in the SWIFT ban. The Russia has been completely banned from utilizing the SWIFT network, which is the network or the messaging platform facilitating the various transactions between the various banks, foreign banks, and the particular bank, the country which is doing transactions in US dollar with the other country. So these sanctions had really made the life of Russia very difficult. So they were having a lot of funding issue because they had almost $600 billion US reserve which was freezed. So we have heard that there has been huge financial losses for Russia based on this. But also you must be hearing that based on this, the petrodollar system has been falling apart. And if this is happening, then this can even impact the position of USA and the US dollar dominance in the world economy. And this is really vital. So before telling all this or getting into all these things, let us understand what is petrodollar. So it is nothing but it is a US dollar earned from crude oil exports. So the US dollar earned from crude oil exports is nothing but the petrodollar. Petrodollars are US dollar paid to an oil exporting country. So here in case say oil exporting country is Saudi Arabia or any Middle Eastern country. So the transactions of the crude oil for buying the crude oil, it is done in US dollar. So that is how the petrol or the petroleum based product, that is petro, is being utilized by giving US dollar, hence petrodollar. So obviously the question is how then all the crude oil, especially in Middle East and Saudi Arabia being the largest producer of crude oil, the largest exporter of crude oil. So how they are doing the trades in US dollar? Why not in Saudi Riyal or Kuwait dinar? So for this, you should know the complete history behind how this has happened. So in 1944, I told that there was, in the last video, I told that the Bretton Woods Conference. So in that the US dollar was pegged to the gold and also other currencies were pegged to the US dollar. But later I told that there was a fall in this system. Richard Nixon, then president of USA, declared that they are giving away this gold standardization system, and they will be using the fiat currency, wherein they will be printing the US dollar and there will not be any gold reserve. So US was clear that if this after this declaration, even if you see in reality the US dollar had fallen a lot at that time while the Mr. Nixon was declaring this, and in a few weeks after that. So US was in search of such a commodity. So gold is no more possible because it was falling, because other countries were paying off in US dollar and taking away the gold reserves from US. So gold was not an option. So they were looking for yet another commodity other than gold. So finally they end up in crude oil. So then he goes to Saudi Arabia, which was the largest exporter of crude oil, and requests that all the crude oil which is to be sold worldwide should be done in US dollar and not in local currency. In return, US promises to Saudi that they will protect their oil fields and the oil reserve. So what happens at this time, there were a lot of geopolitical issues. So the safety of the oil refineries and the oil drilling or oil reserves, oil fields was utmost important for Saudi at that time. So at that time, there were a lot of tensions with Israel in Middle East and in Saudi areas. So Saudi started or agreed to do all the trades or selling of crude oil by US dollar only. So followed by Saudi, which was the largest, or which is still the largest exporter of which was the largest exporter of crude oil. So followed by Saudi, majority of the oil exporting countries also followed them. So they also started trading crude oil or selling crude oil by receiving US dollar. So this system is called petrodollar system. So due to this US dollar transaction for crude and crude oil being used by or utilized by majority of the countries worldwide, and they import crude oil from various countries including Saudi. So they started accumulating US dollar in their reserves. So they had their US dollar reserves. Say in India we have got $580 to $590 billion US dollar reserve. Similarly, various countries. So as everybody started doing trade in US dollar and they had their own US dollar reserves, so the demand for US dollar increased. So obviously the currency appreciation is a matter of or a game of demand and supply. So more demand, so people started accumulating. People wanted US dollar in exchange for their local currency. So it is like huge demand for US dollar. So the US dollar appreciated. So if you see, many had questioned this system. So if you see leaders like Muhammad Gaddafi and Saddam Hussein had questioned this petrodollar dominance. They had questioned this US dollar dominance in crude oil and why this is happening. This should be changed. But if you see, as time goes by, US was successful in eliminating these leaders who had questioned this. So I would say in a raw language that US had killed those people, straight cut, because it was a threat to the economy of US, and they will do whatever necessary actions it is to be done, whether it is logical or illogical, to mitigate the threat for their economical existence. So they want basically the US dollar to dominate always for their economy to be the number one. Now coming back to the present time. So SWIFT ban on Russia. So that was done by the European Union and the Western countries like US. So SWIFT network. So Society of Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunications, which is a long description as such. But simply, as I told, this is a messaging platform for international banking transactions. So it's not a bank at all. So if you see, many have been telling that it's a bank. So it is not a bank. It is just a facilitating platform for the transactions to happen, for the interbank transactions to happen. So SWIFT is actually owned by more than 3,000 banks worldwide. Mainly, it is the banks which is part of G10 countries. With USA having major control, since 90% of the transactions are in US dollar, and hence if it is in US dollar means the central bank, which is the Federal Reserve, has got intervention in this because the transactions are going through them, they being the central bank of USA. So again, the sanctions, so they can stop usage of this SWIFT network for various countries. Hence, such sanctions can actually impact the trade relations. It can affect the economy of that country. So, for an example, to state the sanctions by US in 2012, as Iran went ahead with the nuclear deal. So, US, even though none of the countries supported this worldwide, US alone went ahead with applying sanctions on the Iran, and so basically they stopped the SWIFT transactions. So means that they cannot transact in USD. Means the fundings to the nuclear plants were stopped, which actually impacted the nuclear deal of Iran. But later, US had promised they will not be utilizing these sanctions for such political reasons. So these are called SWIFT bans. So banning the usage of SWIFT network. So SWIFT bans. So later in 2014, another similar event of Swiss network banning was with Russia. While Russia was having a war with Ukraine for annexing Crimea, which is a neighboring country of Russia. So again, while the SWIFT network was blocked by Russia as a part of sanctioning. But anyhow, they didn't expel Russia out of it because they had given a warning. US had given a warning that they will expel Russia out of this SWIFT network if they come up with any other such issues later on. But now you come back to 2022. So at that time, while Russia-Ukraine war, clearly the warning had become reality. US expelled Russia from the SWIFT network. So the complete US dollar reserve of Russia is freezed and they cannot utilize that for any trades. So if you see, majority 80% of the transactions of Russia was through the SWIFT network. You can see how economically they would have crippled. So the issues with the Russia economical issues would have been large because only 20% is remaining. 80% of the transactions was blocked since they were using SWIFT network for that. If you see, almost 300 banks of Russia was utilizing this SWIFT network. Everything got clogged because of this sanction. Also, if you see, Russia is the second largest country in the world who is a user of SWIFT network. So obviously with the SWIFT ban, there was huge financial issues in Russia because the war is going on between Russia and Ukraine. So heavy competition or heavy tough resistance has come up from Ukraine as well. Even it is a very small country. So Russia wanted a lot of funding for weapons, food, etc. So this was actually blocked because of this sanction. But this seems backfire to US if you see the sanctioning which was applied on Russia. So all the countries now fear that if Russia keeps doing this ban or sanctions like this, it is not good for other countries. So if you see, because of that, India has now gone ahead with rupee internationalization. Also, China, Russia opted to use local currency for trades they do. If you see, Russia is the third largest exporter of crude oil. They are a good, sizable energy exporter in the world. If you see, almost 40% of the energy exports or the energy imports to Europe or the European Union is from Russia. So natural gas is also sizable from Russia. So you must have heard about Nord 1, Nord 2 pipelines wherein the energy, various gas and things are transported from all the way from Russia to European Union. So there was issues regarding that. So after sanction by West on Russia, crude oil supply reduced from Russia. Crude oil prices increased because there is lesser supply of crude oil. The demand is more, the supply is less, means the crude oil price increased. Because of the increased crude oil price, the inflation also increased. Worldwide, there has been a huge inflation because of this Russia-Ukraine war. If you see, even in US, because even though US is now the largest exporter of crude oil after Saudi Arabia, still they are also the largest importer of crude oil as well, because the economy is large, there is a lot of requirement of energy, so they are also the largest importer of crude oil. So because of this, the rates of crude oil has increased, so the inflation has increased. Because the crude oil increase means the transportation cost increases, the food cost increases, everything increases in cost, so it leads to inflation. So it has led to huge inflation in European Union also. If you see, my friends in Germany and all was telling that their gas price, their electricity price, everything has gone in double, triple, even 4 times. So they are unable to uh, take that impact of inflation, which is unimaginably high. So then, with the request of EU and all, Russia again agreed to start the energy export to this European Union. But they told that the transactions will be done either in Russian currency ruble, otherwise in some equivalent cryptocurrency. So basically, they will not be utilizing the US dollar. So Russia is exporting 25 to 30% discounted crude oil to China and India also. So they only told that the transactions won't happen in INR; it will be happening in again in Russian ruble. Even Russia has agreed and had done trades of crude oil using Indian rupee also. Now they have stopped doing that because they are already having, I think, more than a billion Indian rupee with them, and they will not be able to use that for any other trades, because trade such things Russia imports to Russia from India is much less. But there are some things which is working out in the back of the stage. So maybe we can see more developments between Russia and India trade relationships. So if you see, this complete sanction backfired USA, and also now Saudi Arabia, who was again an ally of US, because they had been giving military protection to the oil fields and oil reserves. Now Saudi also wanted to get out of this US dollar deals, the petrodollar deal. So they have also, the Saudi and the Middle Eastern countries, including UAE, also wanted to stop using US dollar for crude oil trades. So recently also, if you see, Saudi Arabia rejected the request of USA, basically Mr. Joe Biden, for controlling the rising crude oil price to arrest inflation in USA. So in fact, Joe Biden had requested, then he had personally come to Saudi Arabia to discuss with Mohammed, but this didn't happen. So they told that they are not willing to produce more oil and help reduce the price of the crude oil. Request was completely rejected. So you can see the resistance from various countries against the usage of petrodollar. So talking about petrodollar, so as you know very clearly about petrodollar now, so let's talk about petrodollar recycling. So an early example of petrodollar recycling is in 1974 deal between US and Saudi Arabia, to funnel Saudi petrol dollars into US treasuries. In the sense, subsequent deals deployed Saudi oil export proceeds to pay the US aid and development projects in Saudi Arabia and to finance US weapons sales to the kingdom. So many oil exporters now invest their petrodollars in stocks, bonds, and other financial instruments through sovereign wealth funds. Norway's sovereign wealth fund had assets of about $1.4 trillion at the end of 2021. With a 72% allocation to stocks, the funds hold nearly 1.5% of world's publicly listed shares. So that's all about petrodollar recycling. So if you see in 1991, the total US dollar reserves by various countries was around 71% worldwide. And as we currently speak, it is only just 59 to 62%. So there is almost 10 to 12% dip in the US dollar reserves. So though US dollar is a dominant currency or the for all the trades, going forward we can see a lot of economical or fundamental changes in this. So hope this session was useful for you. If you have any doubts or clarifications regarding this, the part 1 and part 2 of how US dollar dominates as an international trade currency. So if you have any doubts, please let me know. If you have any thing in mind, new topics or something, if you want me to do, so please comment in the below comment box. See you in next video. Till then, happy investing.